Hi, everyone. Mike DePrisco here, Chief Operating Officer at PMI. I am coming to you live from the East Coast of the United States, and it is my honor to welcome you to PMI's Virtual Africa Conference 2021. I want to thank all of the chapters, the volunteers, and the partners who have come together to make this event possible during very difficult times and finding creative ways to continue to deliver value to our members and to our credential holders in this virtual environment. I sincerely hope that all of you are healthy, you continue to stay healthy and vigilant and as safe as possible as we continue to battle through the pandemic. Now, I know today is going to be a very exciting day. A great opportunity for learning, for professional development, for all of you. I couldn't think of a better theme for the conference, Africa, an ecosystem of change makers. You're going to hear perspective from thought leaders and practitioners on opportunities across the region and the skills that continue to be growing in demand for project professionals in the years ahead. Now, you may have recently seen a report that we released called the Talent Gap Report, which found that the global economy is going to need 25 million new project professionals by 2030. 25 million, that's about 2.3 million people per year that will need to enter the project management profession to keep up with the demand. So that's a very exciting and optimistic data point that we have there within that research study. In addition to that, we know that organizations across the region need to be ready for change. Our Pulse of the Profession report found that organizations in Africa in particular stood out from the global average when it came to needing to accelerate business change in key areas like strategy and adaptability, efficiency, and innovation. So clearly, Africa is one of the youngest, fastest growing regions in the world, and certainly one that holds enormous opportunity for project professionals. So we're fortunate here at PMI to have an outstanding group of chapter leaders and volunteers in the region, supported by our team in Africa. You're going to be hearing from Ashwini Bakshi, our Managing Director of Africa, of the Africa region. He is going to be leading a discussion, a very interesting discussion with some of our board of directors. I'm sure you'll enjoy that. Now, I recently had the opportunity to speak to many members of the community from across the Africa region at a chapter and volunteer town hall where we talked about PMI's growth strategy and what it means for the region. And I shared a number of details around the key pillars of this strategy. With our focus on regionalization, with a focus on continuing to evolve and support our chapters and our chapter leaders, new products and offerings that continue to help project professionals tackle challenges in their workplace. And then finally, focusing in on DE&I, youth enablement, and social impact. And as it relates to social impact, we're excited that PMI is going to continue harnessing the passion of our community to make a difference in the world. We are calling on our global community, our members, our volunteers, our staff, our internal and external stakeholders to pledge 100,000 hours of service in support of the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals in 2021. And we are already making some great progress toward this goal. So I hope that you will join us in this bold ambition that we have to truly make an impact through our work with the Sustainable Development Goals program. Now, we are a member, PMI is a member of the UN Global Compact, and we've signed a formal commitment supporting the 17 SDGs, which addresses our world's most urgent challenges, from climate change to poverty. And who better to take on some of these complex problems to help the world be a better place? Project professionals and change makers. So you can learn more about this at our website at PMI.org, Hours for Impact. So I please encourage you to check that out. Now, today we know more than ever, project skills are needed as part of your work, enabling organizations to get their most important initiatives done. And we have continued to not only focus on serving our core project management community, but we're reaching out to a larger group of individuals, a group of individuals that we call change makers. These are individuals who need a wide variety of project-based skills and insights to get work done and to tackle the challenges that they encounter in their workplace. So we are broadening at PMI our product portfolio to meet the needs and pain points that this group of change makers may have. So I want to thank you for being here and for all you're doing for the profession. And I would like to just leave you with a few words of advice. Today, we know perpetual transformation is a business imperative. So be sure to build your resiliency muscles, continue to upskill and to learn and to challenge yourself to take on new initiatives. Purpose matters more than profit. For sure, we know that individuals and global talent is increasingly turning to organizations that really stand for something beyond revenue alone. And flexibility is the new expectation in the future of work. And if we are going to be able to not only attract and retain the best talent, it's crucial that we're developing a holistic view of our teams in which family, in which community, in which health are as important as work itself. So we live in a time of continuous perpetual change. And by being here today, you've taken an important step in future-proofing yourself and your career. So on behalf of PMI, thank you for being here. Have a wonderful day, have a great event. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ashwini, and he's going to take it from here. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ashwini Bakshi, and it's such a pleasure to welcome you all to the PMI Africa Virtual Conference. I am the Managing Director for PMI for Africa and for Europe, and it's a wonderful pleasure to be with all of you here today. Of course, this would all be a lot better if we were there together in person, but we all understand the pandemic situation, and I certainly hope that you, your loved ones, and your teams are staying well and safe. Change is on everybody's mind, and we have the perfect theme for the Africa conference, and that's Africa, an ecosystem of change makers. Now, Africa is a vast and diverse place. The United Nations Children's Fund estimates that in another 30 years, by 2050, 2.5 billion people will call Africa their home. Think about that. That's a full quarter of the world's population. Some of this population growth is so intense that Africa is adding a Thailand or a France every 2 years. The population growth rate is twice the levels of South Asia or of Latin America. The Economist says that some of the fastest growing cities in the world are actually in sub-Saharan Africa: Dar es Salaam, Kinshasa, Nairobi. One implication of this population growth is that over these same 30 years, Africa is going to require 75 million new homes. That's over 50,000 homes every day for the next 30 years. All the attendant infrastructure that will go with this is a project manager's dream. Imagine the impact that you can have if you're a project manager. Imagine the effect you can have in building out nations, not just projects or buildings. Imagine the impact when you work with youth, when you work with emerging technologies, when you do all this, bearing in mind the environment as well as the community. To discuss these and several other interesting issues, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome PMI's Board of Director members, Anka Slushansky, who joins us from New Zealand. Welcome, Anka.
Thank you, Ashwini.
And Ike Nwankwo, who joins us from the city that I'm in at the moment, from London, United Kingdom. Welcome, Ike.
Thank you, Ashwini. Hello, everybody.
It is such a pleasure for Anka and Ike to take time to be with us here today, and we can look forward to a riveting conversation. Before we dive in, I do want to say a very big thank you to all the chapter leaders, to PMI staff, to everybody whose efforts have gone in over the last several months to getting us to this point where all of us are together, even if virtually, and talking about things that we hold dear to our heart. With that, we will get straight in. So, Ike, we want to start with the first theme, Africa, ecosystem, change makers. Now, Africa has a lot of potential. It's been called out for a lot of potential. Share with us some thoughts, Ike, about where that potential resides. What are some of the biggest assets that Africa has that it can rely upon as it moves forward?
Thank you, Ashwini. Interesting question. And I think what I liked about your intro is that you have already touched on quite a number of the assets that exist within Africa. 2.5 billion people would choose to reside in Africa. That is an asset in itself. It's a fantastic asset, just the people there. But we have to also remember that the youth population in Africa is intense, because there's records that says at least 60% of the population of Africa are youths, roughly around, the ages of 30, just below 40. So that in itself is a fantastic assets for Africa, because youth today are the ones that are driving some of the trends that we see going around. And we all know that project management is instrumental to development, both for a nation and both for individuals. So it's fantastic to see that we have the manpower there, and we have a vast generation of youth who are there as assets to help drive the nation forward, the nation being Africa. The other thing in terms of other assets that have happened over the years is mobile networks. Compared to other countries, Africa has taken up the mobile network intensely. There've been so many inventions, so much innovation around mobile networks, with tens of millions of people using mobile networks as the preferred means of communication and IT, if we use that word, across. It has It has revolutionized a lot of industries across Africa. Both, especially in the financial industry, where you can do banking across your mobile phone, text messages in banking, and apps like that. This is part of the innovation. This is part of the assets that Africa has. Then also, NGO presence is intense. Now, they're there because they're trying to help develop Africa, make Africa be that nation that it can be, should be, and will be. NGOs are there to provide it. That's an asset in itself. That's projects, international projects, development projects, health projects, social good projects, all being carried out. And again, we have the population, we've got the youth, we've got the people. And once we embed project management within these initiatives and projects, we will develop the assets further. Upon that, and you mentioned it about the number of houses that are required for the growing population that's happening within Africa. That is talking infrastructure to a huge extent. Infrastructure, schools, people, hospitality, hospitals, roads, other forms of transport. They'll all be needed to facilitate the 2.5 billion population that we expect. The massive youth who have changing trends. Those are assets that we need to build on. And then even from what PMI is doing, noticing this massive trend that's happening in terms of assets, PMI itself has started because we've been in partnerships with organizations like Tony Illuminu Foundation, which is about encouraging entrepreneurs moving forward. Again, with our youth population, a lot of people, and the balance of unemployment, a lot of people are taking up jobs themselves and becoming entrepreneurs, and they're building, they're innovating and using that as an asset to develop their nation. And then the organizations that we're partnering with that help such entrepreneurs move forward. And there are other things like agriculture. Africa has a land mass, good fertile soil. Agriculture is also a massive asset based on the land mass that we can be using to drive development of the nation. And the other thing that we have to always remember about Africa and the population is they're innovative. They're extremely innovative. And that in itself is, an extreme asset. We've seen changes in the music industry around African music coming forward. We've seen changes in the film industry, trying to be the Hollywood, but in Africa with places like Nollywood and things like that coming up. We've seen massive trends in it. This is happening because of innovation. This is happening because they want to be instrumental to development of the nation. And project management, which is all about bringing ideas to reality, will further help build these assets to make Africa continue to move forward in the fantastic pace and determination it's going on currently. So putting this all together, we have an ecosystem of so many different things backed up with youth, entrepreneurship and innovation, and that is what will making Africa move forward the way it is today.
Thank you, Ike. It certainly looks like you've given this a lot of thought. That's a powerful mix that you just presented. And I certainly hope that everybody who's listening to you now is feeling energized and is thinking, how can they pick up some of these initiatives, some of these dimensions, and create positive change with that. Certainly, I can confirm, Ike, I come from telecoms myself, and I've seen firsthand the transformation that occurs when mobile telephony in particular penetrates the farthest corners of a country or a nation, and the empowerment that it delivers to individuals, families, and communities. Certainly, Africa is showing the way in several of those dimensions. As we try to grow, as we try to change and develop, naturally we rely upon our innate creativity and energy, no shortage of those in Africa. Sometimes, though, it helps to look elsewhere. Anka, let me turn to you. You are in New Zealand. You're in the field of education, a vital ingredient of development. You work with youth. Please share with us some thoughts on what might Africa learn? What might Africa be inspired by from the experiences that you have seen with ecosystems elsewhere?
No, thank you very much, Ashwini. Before I answer the question, I just wanted to just add a couple of things to what you and Ike were talking just before. And I just want to really emphasize that the big advantage in Africa, it is the youth and the amazing thing that the young generation can achieve, and has the opportunity to build for the future of the entire region. And with the growth predicted for Africa in the next 30 years, as both of you mentioned, this is the absolutely perfect time to develop the skills as project management and leadership. So coming back to your question, Ashwini, I do have the honor of working with the Ministry of Education in New Zealand. And being influenced by the current events, the education sector in New Zealand has been undergoing a significant transformation. And one of the big focus areas is preparing the young for life once they finish school. And with that in mind, what we have been doing in New Zealand recently, we have been launching, for example, a program which is called School Leavers Toolkit. And that program enables youngsters to learn life skills anywhere from moving from out of home to getting jobs to the working in government, voting, financial management, taxation, as well as things which are much more personal, like taking care of yourself with regards to discrimination and mental health and so on. So we have targeted with this program skills which are important for the young generation to prepare them for the life, but also we've been targeting skills that employers value as well. And we even awarding the school leaver students digital badges to prove their understanding of the various topics once they complete the specific modules. And that's something which we're finding very valuable for, employers when the young kids are going and looking for jobs. It's something which it's really appeal to the young generation. So that Ashwini will be sort of one of the examples of something we've been doing recently in New Zealand.
Thank you, Anka. School Leavers Toolkit. That certainly sounds very useful. And once again, I hope if you're listening and if that sounds interesting to you, please reach out to us separately and we'll be happy. I'm sure Anka will be happy to share more about this very interesting tool, which Anka, as you said, would serve to equip people not just with the technical skills about careers and so on, but as you rightly said, about looking after yourself and those around you. Extremely important. Ike, I'm going to turn to you again. Now, you described, Ike, a number of assets that Africa has, and you and I have been discussing separately on how the community can interwork better together. I know you're passionate about chapters, so am I. Please share some thoughts, Ike, on how can chapters, PMI staff, other partners work much more closely together? What would you like to see in this collaboration that would support Africa and the assets that Africa has?
A very interesting question. Co-creation, I think, is the one word I use to try and describe it. It is, PMI went through a regionalization process for a reason, which is that there's still a core base, but each region has slightly different nuances. So by co-creating, then each chapter's PMI staff and everything can begin to understand what are the local nuances for the particular chapter, for the particular country within Africa. So just working together, that when initiatives are thought about, they're co-created together with the chapters and the volunteers across the various countries in Nigeria. Because Nigeria and Africa, I'm saying Nigeria because I'm using that as an example, but Africa as a whole has cultural differences within it as well. So those cultural differences also bring out slightly different nuances. And there's an understanding where is the common synergy, so that when something is put forward, it is put forward that caters for the region as a whole. So it's really working together from the beginning, not midway, not towards the end, but from the beginning, working together to get those ideas across, and then tying them together so that there's a mutual understanding and mutual belief that it came from both sides of the party, trying to deliver something that makes better, that can make it better for the chapter, for the country, and for the region as a whole. So it's about working together from the start, from the inset, thinking things through, coming up with ideas, brainstorming them together, rejecting, approving, and then being part of the process that delivers it forward. Because most of the chapters and most of the individuals in the chapters are all volunteers. They are proud of what they do. They want to talk about what they've done and the differences they've made. We've talked about the youth today. Youth of today are different. They want to see that they're making an impact on their society, and they want to be associated with the impact they're making. So if it's only one way, they don't feel that they're associated. If they're together, they can feel associated with the impact. They can talk the story. And by talking the story, they're spreading the message about, the good things that they've done and why it came about and the rationale behind it. And PMI is doing the same because they've worked together. So the key thing is about co-creation, collaboration, everything about doing it together and then, bringing out a solution that everybody feels they're part of, genuinely part of.
What a wonderful synthesis, Ike. Co-creation. I've written that down. And once again, I think that's a wonderful approach with which to approach problems or challenges, realizing that we can't possibly do everything all by ourselves. And therefore, join hands, reach out and connect. Very, very powerful indeed, very motivating. Anka, I'm going to turn to you again. In the same thread, really, I spoke passionately about chapters, co-creation, the community element. you are in education. Talk to us a little bit, please, Anka, about learning, how much happens in school in a formal way, how much happens within the community. How does that part of the ecosystem work together? What are some of your thoughts and ideas on this?
So probably I'm going to talk a little bit about what do I see in terms of the role of the sort of education institutions, in evolving and helping, the leaders of tomorrow, to meet tomorrow's challenges. So for me, high education institutions have a important and essential role to play in cultivating and balancing the few key attributes of character in our emerging leaders, curiosity, determination, humility, discipline of deliberate practice, courage, empathy, pride in achieving mastery in any skill set you set your mind to practice. And for the future of work, that will require all of us to be much more engaged in the pursuit of that lifelong learning. So it's no longer tenable and viable to think that, learning just ends when you complete your years of formal education, and higher education can help us emphasize more training and practice. So coming back to what Ike was saying as well, on collaborative problem solving, on creative, the human-centric design, can also activate a more deliberate focus on sustainable product and services life cycles. And educators definitely have a role in all of this because they can proactively trial various options to develop valuable life experiences in parallel with the theoretical learning. Like, for example, you have students can be introduced to workplaces where they can augment the work force and witness practice and contribute to the execution of the skills and the techniques they have learned previously only theoretical. So I know that, for example, in New Zealand, some institutions have already established graduate programs that create the safe space to experiment with things like project management, service design skills, which is quite an emphasis in New Zealand at the moment, and combine that with good mentoring and coaching support, Ashwini. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anka. Ike, I think that was a great segment on the ecosystem and the assets. We will turn now to an extremely important theme, which is youth. And Anka, I'm afraid I'm going to give you the mic again. But before that, a few comments. And as we all know, PMI is doing a lot of work in the youth arena. We actually have a strategic plan for the segment. We have senior leadership focused on the matter. Within Africa, we have the Africa Working Group, which is focused on youth as a key initiative. We work with the likes of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. IQ spoke about that to encourage youth. And then, of course, we have been working hard to sponsor competitions like Africa Youthquake and awarding recognition for some very interesting projects, such as in sustainable farming. That said, Anka, again, coming at it from a learning background and project management background, what is the best way to bring youth and project management together?
It's a great question, given everything we talked about up to now. So one thing that I see is that we have high-performance organizations which value project management, and various organizations might refer to this profession by slightly different names, but they all recognize the importance and the power of turning ideas into reality. So some essential attributes that the project management practitioners must cultivate and the youth need to learn is really about successfully deliver the projects, and to help deliver successfully projects is to learn things like, as I sort of touched before, humility and determination to practice the ongoing learning to strengthen their individual capacities or their individual skills.
Thank you, Anka, and I think that's great. You actually provided quite a recipe for youth to consider in terms of the skill sets that they need to adopt, and that's a very, very impressive list. If we were to focus, though, Anka, if I had to ask you, this might be an unfair question, but if I had to ask you to pick one skill that you would say, Ashwini, audience, this is really important. Work on this first, not the only one, but work on this first. What might that be? And of course, there are no right or wrong answers, Anka.
I know, and this. Thank you for that. It's so challenging because, definitely you will work on the more technical or classical sort of skills. So that's absolutely fine. But for me, is really the change critical skills and power skills and business acumen. So it's quite hard. I'll struggle to pick one. So I'll have to touch on a couple of them, So one is really working on developing the power skills. And those are really the soft skills, that can help drive the change. And as I mentioned before, empathy for the voice of customers, collaborative leadership to accelerate achievement, just focus on building those skills and also focus on developing the business acumen. And what I mean by that and how can you do that is really by understanding the actions in the context of the whole, not just a single point, narrow focused, So by doing that and by working on understanding the big picture, then that helps understand the implications of the effort and sort of drive towards better outcomes. So sort of that will be things which will be in addition to more traditional stuff, the soft skills, power skills, and the business acumen.
Thank you, Anka. And that is so true. I can confirm through a little story of my own. I was in a discussion with the director of a master's program in project management recently. And after we finished discussing the program and the usual things, I asked, what for you as the director of the program is the one thing that you would feel satisfied about that these students who you have spent a year and a half, 2 years with are going out into the world and you're happy in terms of how they're equipped to navigate the world? What is that one thing that you want to see in them? And his answer was very interesting. The answer was confidence. And that resonated with me because, of course, confidence is something that is easy to talk about, but difficult to build. And it is not built by reading books or in a classroom. It is built by getting up and doing things, falling down once in a while, picking yourself up, and that is how you become stronger over a period of time. So there is no such thing as an overnight success. It takes 10 years, 20 years. And that's something that I've remembered since then. Ike, allow me to turn to you. I know that you personally exhibit the value of a lifelong learner. As Anka mentioned, lifelong learning is a key skill. I know you stay up to date with business, with technology, with the latest in what's happening in organizations. Talk to us, please, a little bit about this theme of lifelong learning and youth. What advice would you have for youth? What suggestions? What would you encourage them to do?
Before I answer that, I just want to touch on the previous question and just touch one or two things specific to Africa. One thing that would be good for youth is almost by seeing examples of successful implementations, seeing examples of things that have worked, seeing where the principles of project management have been applied to deliver results so that they can look up to examples. They need to see those examples. Okay, and that's one thing. And then the flip side of it is that organizations within Africa don't always understand the true value of project management. So what we as an organization need to do is and project professionals and the people listening to this today is to begin to express the value of project manager to the youth, to everybody, so they can understand the concepts behind it and what benefits it can give in order to deliver projects, make ideas reality, and then change the environment. That fundamental mindset has to be established within the region for the other aspects to work. And so we need to work on that aspect as well. So one of the key things in that is just making sure that the youth and the people around the youth understand that they first have to have that mindset around delivery, and that the examples they can look to that has worked. If not, they will try to do the let's test it and go around because they have nothing else to use as a benchmark moving forward. So I just want to pick on that point because it's critical. And that's why PMI itself is working, has the Africa Working Group, as we've talked about, for youth and, the competitions, trying to bring that out and guide youth to move forward, and even working with Tony Illumina Foundation is all supporting that principle of trying to get people through a process that they understand. And there'll be live examples out there that people can see, wow, is this how it's done? They can look to learn from and then get mentoring from them. It's why we do the, I think it's the 50 youth, I can't remember the term we use, the 50 youth of this year, I think it was, and explaining them so that people can look at fellow Africans that have used the principles around that to move forward. And that begins to motivate our youth, motivate our project professionals to see that it can be done, it has been done, and therefore, why can't I do it? And then they can begin to get that mindset shift, and then they can start applying the project management principles, as Anka has said, around making sure that they have that determination, as you said, and that business skills and acumen to move projects and initiatives forward. So going specifically to your question, I look at it 2 ways. Personally, learning doesn't stop. I continue to learn. I actually like the concept of reverse mentoring, because even with my kids, when we talk about social media, I understand it to an extent. They understand it fantastically, but that's where the future is going. Okay, so I learn from them, they learn from me. So one good aspect of life learning is I can mentor, but I can be mentored. And I actually look for youth to mentor me now because I want to understand the changing dynamics of youth, because that is changing. That is where it's going through. So reverse mentoring. So there's a concept of reverse mentoring that they can also teach me. That is part of lifelong learning. And if you look at technology trends over the years, it used to take about 50 years for new technology change, a major technology shift to occur. These days, it takes 5 years. So you can't stay at what you've learned previously and believe that will keep you going forward. You have to keep up to date with the trends. Your educational, your learning, be it in tidbits or full certification, but you have to go with the trend. 2 years ago, we probably weren't talking too much about AI. Today, we're talking about AI a lot. Internet of Things, it was being mentioned briefly. Today, it's becoming almost the norm. There's so many things that are coming across that becoming the norm. The pandemic has made a massive shift around how people think, that people are learning quickly to catch up with it. And it's changed the trends as well. So that's a part of continuous learning. Previously, at least in my time, when we're talking about project management, we're talking purely of what we call waterfall in those days. It was waterfall. Times of change where we're now looking to deliver value faster, and we're now talking about agile, still project management, but we're now focusing on a faster and more, should I say, efficient way of delivering through a different methodology that can work in parallel or in isolation, depending on your project, with what we knew before. So things are changing faster, and therefore you have to continue learning, and you continue learning all the way through your life because it will continue to change. And once you're there to be adaptable to the changing situations, once you have that mindset to continue to learn, to see what's happening, to continue to give back, then you will have that mindset of life learning.
Thank you, Ike. That was very, very energizing. Reverse mentoring, what a wonderful concept. And Anka, actually, that sounds like something that could become a part of the School Leavers Toolkit. So they go ready to mentor people like Ike, myself. An empowering idea indeed. An empowering idea indeed. We see, in fact, that youth is leading the way, not just in technology, which is sort of obvious, has been a trend for a while. Some of the greatest technical innovations are driven, led by youth, but also sustainability. We see that now. The young people are very, very conscious about the state that the planet is in, and they take it very seriously, and more power to them is something that I would say. Very good indeed. So that was a great segment. We got some great ideas there. Thank you, Anka and Ike. And we will turn now slowly to the final theme of our discussion, and that is leapfrog. Now, Ike, you mentioned a wonderful example earlier around mobility and mobile telephony and how that is transforming, for example, the financial services landscape in Africa, M-Pesa is a global revolution that everybody is aware of. Let's spend some time discussing, Anka, Ike, about what might be some of the other emerging technologies that could help Africa leapfrog. What would you say comes to mind immediately?
As we talked before, it's quite hard to sort of predict what's coming next, because you talked about, the mobile progress, the financial sector, sustainability, renewable energy. It's all the construction and the explosion of growth in Africa, which will bring so much more. We don't even know what's going to come, So for me, the most impactful opportunity for leapfrogging is really to practice that strong, effective leadership grounded in the Ubuntu perspective of life, and we can achieve better outcomes for everyone when we work in service to each other, subordinating our ego for the benefit of the wider community. So that's sort of my sort of quick thoughts. So Ike, I'll hand over to you if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Anka, and I'm glad you mentioned Ubuntu because that is the fundamental. That is an African principle that's been around for years, and it's the principle of that. So yes, principle of doing everything together, because if you do it in isolation, you don't really gain, and it goes further in terms of its basis. But I totally agree with what Anka says. It's very hard to predict, what the changes will be. So I think what we need to concentrate on is building skills, right? And I mentioned earlier, let's concentrate on building the necessary skills that will allow us to move forward, deliver, make ideas turn into reality. So no matter what happens in the future, we have the skills to be able to think about things and then turn them, ideas into reality, which is a fundamental concept. So let's get project management skills, power skills, human skills. Let's start learning those now. Or yesterday, as the case may be, so that everybody's empowered with those skills, so that whatever change happens, they're ready. Because anything that happens going forward now is all about being able to adapt. It's about adaptability. You need the skills there, and then you'll be able to adapt. Then you'll have the mindset to be able to adapt, and therefore you'll be ready to make ideas a reality.
Thank you, Anka. Thank you, Ike. And I could not agree more. I remember a discussion with the CEO of one of the top telecom operators in Africa, and I asked him, what is your vision for your organization? What is your vision for the young people who are joining your organizations in hundreds? And he said something interesting as well. He said he wants everybody to be transformation ready. Saying transformation is not the job of just the chief transformation officer or the chief executive officer. It's everybody's job. And everybody needs to be adaptable. Everybody needs to anticipate and lead change. Be, as we say at PMI, a change maker. Everybody needs to be a change maker, a change leader. And of course, that's not easy, but it's a very empowering notion. Recognizing that you have that confidence, that ability to conceive of a change, conceive of an improvement, and make your ideas a reality. Now, just building on what we've been discussing until now, we often talk about the PMTQ, Project Managers Technology Quotient. Your comments on that, please, and how should that idea, PMTQ, evolve? Should it stay the same? Should it get added on with something? Talk to us about it, please.
Yeah, I'm so passionate about this. I can talk forever about this subject and topic. Ashwini, I don't get the chance as often as I wanted to, but there was a major theme in one of our latest Pulse of the Professions, and everybody knows what the PM stands for, project management. But then when you go to the TQ, you're thinking, okay, what does the TQ mean? And the TQ for me represents the a person's ability to adapt, to manage, integrate technology based on the needs of the organization or the project at hand. If I think like for artificial intelligence, as an example, and we talked about artificial intelligence before, there was a report by Accenture which predicted that between 2018 and 2022, investments in AI and human-machine collaboration could increase revenues by an average of 38% across the sectors. And also we had nearly half of the executives saying that traditional job descriptions are becoming obsolete as machines take on more routine work. So of course, that importance of technology is nothing new. We know about that. It's very important. But it has taken a sort of a far greater urgency, if I can call it like that, because now it's important how to integrate technology, because you don't just want to be an AI expert, for example, but you need to understand the technology and how to deliver even greater value using technology. So in the digital world, the PMTQ for me will really be the make or break skill set the professionals need, and that is really true today more than ever. And if you understand, we have the talent triangle, and if we understand the size of the triangle, but if we combine that technical leadership, strategic and business management skills with the understanding of technology, and if you add over that the digital overlay to the traditional triangle, that's where you get that edge, if you get what I'm trying to say, because organizations need project managers, project leaders, which have the ability to learn and keep pace with technology, with the digital transformation, which is impacting every aspect of the work. And disruption is sort of touching everything. Disruption is a new normal, so we don't have the new normal anymore. It's this new world. And some of the characteristics are, and I won't go too much into it, is really always being curious, and have that inclusive leadership. So come back a topic which I'm so passionate about, which is the leadership and the inclusive leadership, and looking at talent pool. But some of the challenges as leaders is to help develop that mindset throughout the organization and in our peoples. And you can do that in different ways, like, for example, the technology front and center. Like, for example, I'm thinking of Domino's. They call itself a technology company more than a pizza company today, Or if you look at the self-kiosk that McDonald's has rolled out in so many stores, thanks to their sort of award-winning PMO, that sort of thing, So it's sort of beyond what you usually expect. And also ensure that you have the digital fluency across the organization and the enterprise. You also need to reimagine the career journeys, and we talked about that a little bit. IQ touched about that. It's about, we need to understand that the jobs we have today won't be in the same form in 20 years, so we have to be mindful of the development opportunities we have for our people, and prepare, as I said, the young for the, for the roles that don't exist yet. It's just something which we don't even know what's coming. And then I talked about the talent triangle. All what I wanted to add also is, like we talked before, we don't know what technologies and next practices are coming, in the future. So we need to let go of the notion of, the organization needs a person who can do X, being X agile ways of working or DevOps or design thinking, because the PMTQ is not just about those technical skills alone that I've said, but it's knowing, again, I mention again, when technology is the right solution, and knowing how to engage with stakeholders and experts. Is about knowing when a project requires, for example, a blockchain expert or someone which brings the experience in DevOps, and what we need leaders and project leaders which embrace those shifts and turn the technology in ways we can't anticipate. We need to embrace the change instead of fearing it. That's pretty much the essence of it for me.
Anka, that actually was a fantastic summary. Embrace the change instead of fearing it. I think a perfect summary. Thank you. Ike?
Anka, your summary there and your summary was excellent, and embrace the change is exactly what I was thinking as well. When we talk of PNG and when we talk of tools, I mean, one thing that project management teaches you when you, as a project leader, is that you have to use the right tools for the right job. And Anka, you mentioned about that. But what you need to do in terms of mindset is be open to all the tools available, to have awareness that those tools exist, and then be the right leader that can say, okay, although that tool exists, it's not appropriate for my particular project, or it is. Because, I mean, you read examples where if I have a nail and want to put it in a piece of wood, I don't take a bulldozer to do that, do I? But it's a tool there that I can use, but it's not the appropriate tool. So when we look at it, it's all about being that right person, that something is happening, the tools are out there, the way to do it, and you use the appropriate tool to use it. And that's what, when we talked about life learning, that's part of the life learning and the continuous learning that you have to do. Look out, see what's to have an idea of it, so that you have that toolcase of skills. Personal skills being very important as part of it, but you have this toolkit of other skills, technical skills and everything, that when you're in the project, you open it up and say, this seems to be the right one for this particular project to deliver it there. And that's the mindset that Anka also touched on, that project leaders should have, not run away from it, but embrace it and then use the right tools.
Thank you, Ike. And in fact, you just described the gymnastic principle, which is gymnastic organizations, gymnastic individuals, those who succeed, look around them, and exactly as you said, they use the tools at hand, they use the relevant tool, and they lead. They have the courage and the confidence to say, this is what is right for the situation, and that is the way I'm going to go. And sometimes that takes courage, and you have to defy bureaucracy or policies, whatever other obstacles life may throw at you. Anka, Ike, this has been a wonderful discussion, and we will wind our way to a close gradually. I've been taking notes frantically. You have covered such a lot of ground. And I want to say two things first. First of all, one more time, a big thank you. I think both of you model the sort of values that the new normal, Anka, as you said, or the never normal requires, passion and energy. You can see that shine through from both of you. And then the second thing is you touched upon a number of principles or values or ideas that I think deserve to be written down. I have written down the School Leavers Toolkit. I think the idea that when you make a transition, have a toolkit with you, hunt for it or build your own or ask somebody for it, but important that you have the tools with you. Ike, I loved your articulation of the co-creation principle. The notion that we shouldn't try to do everything by ourselves, but collaborate, be part of a network, be a family. A very, very strong principle. You spoke, of course, from your own experience about lifelong learning and reverse mentoring. Powerful ideas, again, not just in fact, regardless of demographics, these are powerful ideas. You can be young or old, and you can be mentoring or getting mentored. The idea being that you are open to absorbing knowledge. And Anka, you spoke passionately about PMTQ, as you said you would, but about adaptability and leadership. And when you don't know what is the next change that is coming your way, you had better be working on your skills, your adaptability, your capabilities, which will help you resolve a problem when you come across one. I appreciated, of course, the mature principle of Ubuntu. We are nothing without others. We only become big, paradoxically, when we make ourselves small. And I think that is something for everybody to think about. Extremely important. And then I love the contemporary messages, Anka and Ike, that you left us with. Digital fluency. We cannot escape the relentless march of technology. We had better learn it. We had better know how to work with it. And you spoke about embracing change and not fearing it. And you spoke about being open, being the leader that we need to be. I cannot attempt a better summary. I think you covered a lot of ground, and I certainly hope that the audience is absorbing this, hopefully taking notes. And I know that if they want to, they will reach out to you. I'm going to turn to you one by one. Anka, first you. What would be one or two messages, suggestions, exhortations that you would leave for the audience here at the conference? And then Ike, for you.
Yes, thank you, Ashwini. First of all, thank you very much for having the opportunity to speak with you and have the dialogue with Ike and Ashwini. And as Ashwini mentioned, I hope you found it valuable and inspiring. One thing for me is really remember that we need the people to be adaptable in face of change, to make things happen and make ideas reality. So for me, work on those skills, and practice leadership skills, leader to leader rather than leader of follower, and that will really help you proactively drive change, real transformation efforts, and turns idea into reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Anka. Ike?
Yeah, Srini, I'd like to thank you and everybody listening today for giving us the opportunity to speak. I think it's been an interesting discussion, and love the summary as well because it captured most of the points. What I'd like to say as a takeaway is going back to the theme of today's conference, which is, and I'll read it, Africa, an ecosystem of change makers. I'd like to put a question mark there and say, yes, it is an ecosystem of change makers. And I want everybody here to take that away and start thinking about it, that you are change makers. Everybody here listening to this is a change maker. And I like to take away the concept of co-collaboration and setting examples. PMI is here to help drive it forward, but we want to collaborate and co-create with all of you, with the community, with the region. So we want ideas from yourselves. We want you to come forward. We want to put them together, but we need to begin the concept of co-creation so that we can make ideas turn to reality. And then we can make this massive population of change makers begin to make substantial and effective change in what they do today via adaptability, life learning, reverse mentoring, and embracing change, and all the powerful concepts we brought in today, because that is where change will happen. It will change from people listening today and spreading that knowledge and educating people about it and setting examples of good things that have been done so that others will look forward, especially our youth will look forward who are already doing things. So I'll actually also encourage the youth that are doing things to turn to themselves to say, look, I have used and it worked for me. Come and see how I did it. And then you can learn as well so we can put it forward. Mentoring goes all angles, up, down, left and right. So my message is we can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. Let's do it together and let's make our change makers within this ecosystem more effective to deliver ideas and make them a reality.
Absolutely brilliant, Ike. Thank you. Anka, thank you. Once again, a big thank you to both of you for taking the time and sharing so generously with your energy and your wisdom and your insights and experience. This was a great and a wonderful thing to do. I hope we will do it again soon. I want to thank the audience, the organizers, chapter leaders, one more time, PMI team, for being here today. We hope you find this session and the whole conference very useful, and keep leading change. Thank you. Stay well. Bye for now.